Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing the taught master's programs within the UCD School of Sociology. And I'm delighted to be joined by two representatives from the school. We have Associate Professor Kieran Allen, and we have Daniel O'Sullivan from the school. So my name is Emma Donovan. I'm going to be facilitating the session. I'm from the College of Social Sciences and Law. So today, we're going to be discussing 5 programs. We have the MSc and the MA in Sociology. We have the MSc in Comparative Social Change. We have the MA in Race, Migration and Decolonial Studies. And we have the MSc in Social Data Analytics. So these are the programs we will be discussing today. I would like now to introduce Associate Professor Kieran Allen from the School of Sociology. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all, and welcome to this event where we will try to outline what we do on the postgraduate courses in the School of Sociology. Let me just start by saying a word about the School of Sociology in University College Dublin. We are the largest sociology school in Ireland. We have a very good diverse range of sociologists, about 20 people on our staff. We are informed by a critical view that sociology needs to examine the societies in which we live, to look under the surface, to try to examine patterns and structures that may not be so obvious immediately. So that, for example, if we look at the COVID-19 crisis, it is obvious even now that it doesn't always affect people equally, but it depends on gender, sometimes race, and indeed social class. So this is the type of vision that the School of Sociology seeks to examine, looking at the contemporary world from a sociological lens. Now, what I want to do here is introduce 3 of the program structures, and then hand it over to Daniel, who will look at a number of other ones. So the first one I want to look at is the MA in Sociology full-time. And this is essentially a number of core modules and a number of option modules. So in terms of the core modules, we first of all ask you to do a course on sociological research, which examines a lot of the issues surrounding research. How do we use official statistics? Feminist insight into research, the relationship between theory and research. The second core module we ask you to take is social theories and applications, where we look at a wide range of classical and modern sociological theories and see how they apply to the contemporary world. Thirdly, we ask you to do a dissertation. As you'll see in a minute, we're both in the MA and the MSc, we're asking you to do a dissertation. The dissertation is approximately 20,000 words. You put in a proposal in the beginning of the second semester, and then you will be required to submit a dissertation in August, about 9 months later. So those are, if you like, the core modules in terms of the MA in Sociology. Now, alongside that, you also have a number of optional models, 3 of which you must take. And these give quite a wide variety, ranging from options on policing and social conflict, to nationalism and social change, to religion in a comparative perspective, to social thinking in the digital age. So there's a wide variety of options that you need to take here. Okay, so that's the Masters of Arts in Sociology. Now, the second one I introduce will be much briefer. It's the MSc, Masters of Social Science in Sociology. And the reason why it'll be briefer is, in fact, it's quite a similar course, almost exactly the same, with one key difference, which is that in terms of the research methods, you're mainly focusing on quantitative research and a statistical backup to doing quantitative research. And therefore, you still have the same core modules, sociological research, social theories and application, as well as, if you like, the options I mentioned earlier on. But again, just to stress, the difference between an MSc in sociology and an MA in sociology is a higher emphasis on on quantitative research methods rather than qualitative research methods.
So I am the communications officer at the School of Sociology, and I'm just going to talk briefly about the MSc in Social Data Analytics and the MSc in Comparative Social Change. So let me bring up the slide for Social Data Analytics to begin with. So this subject is it's kind of a relatively new academic subject area. And it is brings together a combination of social sciences and mathematics, statistics, and computing. So this program is all about using data to analyze and understand society, with a kind of a focus on behavior and decision making. The kind of students who would usually be attracted to this program, you know, they could come from quite a variety of backgrounds. Some of them will be sociologists and social scientists, and others will be people with a more maybe kind of maths or even engineering or computing and statistics backgrounds. The applicants to the program are actually required to show some ability in both the on both the kind of the social sciences end of things, and also some ability on the computing and data end of things. So it's quite suitable for people who, for example, have done a social sciences degree at university, but maybe have also taken some courses as part of their degree on programming and computer programming. That in mind, similarly, students who have come from a kind of a computing background might have had a kind of an interest in some of the social sciences, and might have taken some courses in social sciences as well, which will make them a kind of an ideal candidate for the program. So because the program attracts a kind of a wide variety of students, we do kind of tailor the experience to everybody when they come in. If you feel that you have the minimum requirement of mathematical ability, but you're weak in, you know, you're kind of not as advanced in programming as some of your classmates, you'll be given kind of more support on the programming and statistical side of things. And vice versa, if you come in and if you have a strong kind of computing background, but maybe a weaker social sciences background, the program is also designed to be able to bring you up to the required level in social science for the degree. This program does also offer an internship for students. It's an option. You choose either to complete a dissertation, quite similar to what Kieran was mentioning before on the MA and MSc of sociology. But you can instead of doing a dissertation, you could also choose to undertake an internship. So the internships are not provided by the school. We still rely on the students to actually go out and source internships for themselves, which is kind of an important part of undertaking an internship. An important part of the experience is kind of sourcing appropriate opportunities. Students have done internships in previous years in banks, in tech companies, in research institutions, at universities, other universities, and NGOs, kind of a wide range of places that they've undertaken internships in before. It's an 8-week internship, and it kind of finishes up with a project, and that is instead of the thesis or the dissertation. Now, if you kind of signed up for the internship and for one reason or another you haven't found something suitable, you can always switch back over to the thesis. So which every year there are some students who end up going that route, but the thesis is there anyway as a backup option to help you finish the degree. In terms of employment opportunities, so graduates have found offers, have found careers in the tech sector, NGOs, government departments and offices, basically any organization that needs data analysis and interpretation. is a suitable employer for this graduates of this program. So that's the MSc Social Data Analytics. As Emma mentioned, if you have any specific questions, you can pop them in the Q&A box and we'll address them at the end. I'll move on now to talk a bit about the MSc in Comparative Social Change. This program has a couple of unique features. It is a joint degree with Trinity College, also based here in Dublin, for those of you who might not be familiar. Trinity College has the second highest ranked sociology department in Ireland after UCD, so you'll be with the top two. And it's pretty rare to have an opportunity to study at both of these institutions at the same time. So students on this program are full students of both universities. They would traditionally spend time on both campuses and have access to both libraries and all the fun aspects of students' life as well. Students' clubs and societies in both universities will be open to the students on this program. You'll also get a degree transcript that has the names of both institutions on it. This program uses a comparative approach to understand how societies are organized. So they will usually start with Ireland as the kind of the starting point, and then compare different aspects of society here to other countries around the world, or other regions of the world even. So it covers areas including health, globalization, nationalism, civil society, gender, and migration. So these will be kind of the subjects or the topic areas that you will be looking at in a comparative context. Because of the nature of it being a kind of a comparative program, it does attract quite a lot of international students. So it's a very international classroom in a very diverse classroom with students from all parts of the world. From Ireland, Europe, North America, South America, Asia, and Africa. So, which creates a great environment in the classroom as students can, provide firsthand examples of their own experience of, comparing different parts of the world, the societies of different parts of the world. And so again, graduates from this program will go on to study for PhDs quite often, or they will find work in government organizations, NGOs, international NGOs, research institutions, etc.
Okay, so the MA in Race, Migration and Decolonial Studies, well, first of all, this is unique in Europe in that it tries to look at issues dealing with contemporary injustices, inequalities throughout the world, affecting people not just on the basis of class and gender, but also on the basis of ethnicity, migration, and indeed colonization. It looks at how social movements have emerged to resist these injustices and the strategies that they embark on to try to overcome these injustices. Broadly speaking, this course draws on a variety of theoretical traditions. It looks at feminist and queer theory, critical race and decolonial perspectives, and a whole variety of scholars, really, who are often outside the mainstream curriculum. Where does this course lead to? Well, it can lead to often work for NGOs, work in the public sector, research, consultancy, and academia. And broadly speaking, I think that its inspiration comes from those who sometimes have either an activist background or are concerned to formulate policy to recognize diversity and indeed overcome injustice. This course can also be taken as a graduate diploma rather than simply a master's in race and migration. The difference being that you don't have to engage in a dissertation or thesis in order to complete the study here. Okay, so I think I'll leave it at that and see if there are any questions, and apologies.
So thanks very much both for those insights into the program details and the masters available. So we have had a few queries up to now in terms of the university response to COVID-19 and what it's going to look like for students come September. So just for our prospective students, As a university, we remain committed to delivering the best face-to-face teaching and campus experience where possible within the public health restrictions that apply for the next academic year. And so as a university, we're continuing to make preparations to welcome all incoming students in September. And we will be including blending online delivery with small group interactions with lecturers and giving access to library and other university facilities, again within public health guidelines. So for graduate studies, we are commencing the academic trimester on the Monday, the 21st of September. This is for a 12-week term. And this is a fluid situation, and I suppose we are committed to providing more details from individual schools in terms of the delivery of specific modules over the coming weeks. So please check back in with the school itself over the coming weeks, but more importantly, to refer to the university COVID-19 site. I'm going to pop that in the chat box now so you can reference that, because that is the most up-to-date with most relevant information in regards to COVID-19. So we just had a few other questions in terms of the social data analytics program, if you'd like to take that one, Daniel.
Yeah.
So if you have a sociology and economics background with no formal education on computer programming, can you apply for this program?
No, the program does require all applicants to have at least some background in mathematics, statistics, or computing. As that, when we assess applications for the program, we really do end up looking at cases on our people on like a case-by-case basis. So it is relatively rare for people to have a strong social sciences or sociology background and also have a lot of maths or computing. That's changing a bit, and for example at UCD we have undergraduate programs that combine social sciences with computing, and so students coming through that program would be well suited to this master's program. But we do look at a kind of a wide variety of elements in a student's background before determining whether they're eligible. So for example, Irish students who perhaps have had a very strong Leaving Cert result in mathematics might be considered for the program. Similarly, in your home country, if you have had a very strong high school maths performance, it might be something that we could take into account. I know that applying for programs at UCD does come with an application fee, and that might put off a lot of people applying for that on the basis that they might be worried that they would pay an application fee only to discover that they're not eligible for the program. So what we advise students to do is to get in touch with us, and we can actually have a kind of a look at their specific circumstances before we could encourage them to apply or not. So Emma, I think, has posted my email address at d.o'sullivan@ucd.ie in the chat there. So I'm somebody who you could contact if you wanted to kind of talk about your exact specific background, and we could get a clearer picture of whether or not you are suitable for that program. So the program doesn't require people to have a particularly strong background in maths, statistics, or computing, but you do have to have some basis there. And if you have some kind of background in those areas, the program will train you and will teach you and bring you up to the standard required for the degree. And as I mentioned, vice versa, if you have a stronger background in mathematics and computing, but maybe a slightly weaker background in social sciences, the program is also designed to train those people with a strong social sciences understanding to go along with their kind of data and their data understanding.
Great. I might put a question to you, Kieran, in terms of a student who has applied for the MA in sociology but thinks they might be more suited to the MSc in sociology. Is it possible, just the differences there, if you could outline the differences between the two, and is it possible to change?
First of all, it is possible to change at this stage. Yeah, we haven't closed applications yet. The main difference between the two is that the MA in sociology focuses on qualitative research, by which I mean open-ended interviewing, participant observation, any form of research really that's not based on numerical data. So that's the main, if you like, bias of the MA. The MSc is essentially geared to quantitative research. So if you want to come out with skills in organizing a survey, particularly organizing a survey, want to look at the correlation of different variables, want to draw up, for example, attitude surveys, that area, and you really focus on the quantitative aspects of research, then you'll be more suitable to doing an MSc in sociology. And as I said, you are still in time to change the application from MA to MSc.
And we have another question just in terms of distinguishing between the MA in sociology and the MSc in comparative social change, and just the key core differences there. If Kieran or Daniel would like to take that.
Well, the essential differences is in the name. The comparative is based on a comparative perspective. So if we look, for example, at a course I teach myself on globalization, as part of a general MA in sociology, you would look at theories of globalization, economic processes of globalization on a very general level. But in terms of an equivalent course in the comparative perspective, you would look at comparisons, for example, between India and China. So it's very much based on empirical studies comparing different situations in different countries, whether it's on economic developments or on health policy. But essentially, the second one is based on a comparative perspective.
Another question that we've gotten previously is in terms of the part-time options. But Daniel, maybe if you could speak to that in terms of how it differs or how you accommodate part-time students versus the full-time.
Yeah, so not all of our programs are offered as a part-time, but the social data analytics is, race, migration, decolonial studies is, and the MA and MSc in sociology both are. So the comparative social change is not. As you can imagine, comparative social change being run between two universities creates maybe a unique timetabling issue for both sides, as we need to make sure that the appropriate modules are available to everybody. But for part-time programs, it's basically it's half of the workload over 2 years. So you would take half the number of classes. You would still do your first trimester and your second trimester. So that's your kind of your autumn teaching term and your spring teaching term in the first year, and you would do the same again in the second year. The only difference is obviously that you would be in on campus half the amount of time than you would if you were doing it full time. And then you will go on after completing the 2 years as the degree over the course of 2 years for part-time, you would go on to the summer trimester then to complete your thesis. So you would still do the thesis kind of over the summer trimester. Of course, you'll begin the thesis before the summer trimester. You usually start outlining it and preparing for it and researching it, but you'd be kind of required to work on and complete the thesis over the summer trimester.
And Kieran, just one final question in terms of the progression to PhD, in terms of PhD offerings within the school. Is there support from the school to progress into PhD?
Yes, very much so. I mean, the advantage of the School of Sociology is that, as I said, it has about 20 members of staff who have very different and divergent specialisms. So therefore, if you want to do a PhD on decolonial studies, we have somebody. If you want to do a PhD on the political economy of India, or if you want to do a PhD on war and conflict, we have people. Okay, so first of all, there's quite a wide range of topics you can choose from. Generally speaking, the way you do a PhD is you put in a proposal, guidelines are on our website, and then you make a link with a possible academic who might supervise you, and then your application goes to a graduate studies board to see if you are accepted. The other way in which the master's links in with a PhD is, this is my advice to students, but if you are, for example, doing a dissertation, one way to think of it is to do your dissertation on a topic which is getting you ready for a much wider study in terms of a PhD. So if you want to do a PhD on, for example, war in the former Balkans, why not start with a small aspect of that in terms of your dissertation for the master. So in that sense, one works with the other, and obviously as part of the master's program, you get to know many of the academics, can talk to them and see which academic would be most suitable in terms of supervising a potential PhD.
Great. And just one final question in terms of moving between full-time and part-time. Daniel, could you answer that? If a student is enrolled full-time, can they change to part-time?
Yeah, so it sometimes depends on students where they're from. For example, if you are an international student who requires a visa to study in Ireland, you will not be able to study part-time. You'll have to study full-time. I am not actually entirely sure if you're an Irish student what would be the arrangements for switching from full-time to part-time, but I could find that out, and if anybody really needs to know an answer to that, then please do contact me directly, and I'll get you kind of the correct information.
Great. So I think we just had one in terms of the modules. If when a student is choosing optional modules, whether or not they are able to select them on the same day as core modules, maybe a question in relation to the timetabling. Could you maybe just elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay, well, very much so, and I'm very glad to see that you are applying, given your circumstances living in Wexford. The situation is that we've deliberately designed the MA course to allow people who are, for example, working to take part in the course. So therefore, the course is over effectively. Sorry, if you're doing the comparative course, the modules stretch over a number of days. But if you're doing the master's in sociology, either arts or science, Master of Science Sociology, you can actually manage to do it in one day by choosing carefully your option. So now at this stage, because of the COVID-19 range, it's difficult to say exactly what the timetable will be, but I'm sure the timetable will be out fairly early. And therefore, if you're restricted to say, I can only drive one day a week to Dublin and get out again as quick as you can, then you can obviously choose to take a lot of your modules on, let's say, on the Tuesday and go down to Wexford again.
Sounds great. Thank you. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have at the moment. I have popped the contact details for both Kieran and Daniel in the chat box, the Q&A box. So if you would like to contact them on further queries, please do not hesitate to get in touch with them. So I think at this stage we're going to conclude the webinar, and I'd like to extend my thanks to Associate Professor Kieran Allen and to Daniel O'Sullivan for their participation today. And we hope to see you all here in UCD in September. And I'd like to thank you all for viewing. Thanks for your time.